Evan told me that I had 10 minutes to talk, and so if I needed to do not BS too much, so we'll try and stick within that time frame. This has kind of been covered already, talking about the irrigation scheduling and what it is and what we can gain from it, and also this has also been covered. The main thing that's really important is your soil texture, and we've talked a little bit about that. Determining your soil texture, forming a soil ribbon to determine soil texture, and then we've also talked a little bit about moisture status. The hand feel method is a low-tech way of trying to determine soil moisture status, and this is it's handy because you don't need any tools in your hand. You've got them right attached to your body. You can't lose them. So it just takes a little bit of time to develop the skill to know how different soils feel and what their moisture status is, and that's to help you determine what the moisture is in your soil and how much you can add. Each of the different textures are a little bit different, and there's a great resource on the internet that helps you to get a better handle of that. Evan wanted me to talk a little bit about tensiometers and watermark sensors. So the tensiometer is a good tool for measuring water. It's actually the only tool we have that directly measures the availability of water in soil. The others are kind of intuitive, or they're a tool to help you assess what the level is, but it isn't a direct measurement. The tensiometer measures the suction that plants would have to exert to remove water from soil. And it's actually best suited, I think, for horticultural crops. The one problem with tensiometers is that the range is quite narrow on what it is able to measure and when it is effective. So that's why I say it's best for horticultural crops. There's some tensiometers. It's basically a tube that's with a ceramic base, and what it does is it allows as the soil moisture content goes down, it creates a suction, and it's able to indicate that up to about 80 bars, or 80 centibars. So here's a chart that helps you to interpret the readings of a tensiometer. Basically, when the soil is near field capacity, the reading is close to 0, and then as the soil dries out, the reading increases, and as this chart points out, once you get down around 40 to 50, it's getting time to apply irrigation, and once you get more than that, it's probably over dry, and your tensiometer might fail. So that's why these are not effective as for monitoring soils, because our farm soils, our grain crop soils, frequently dry out on dry land, frequently dry out a lot more than these do, and so they have their limitations. Another sensor, which is a little bit more robust than the tensiometer, not quite as finicky in terms of its maintenance, is the watermark sensor. These sensors are placed, you mount the watermark sensor on a PVC pipe, and you put it down into the soil, and it measures the same thing basically as a tensiometer, only it's a little bit more easier to use. As far as placement of these sensors in the field go, to put them into the field, you soak the sensors in water for 3 cycles with wetting and drying before you place them out in the field, and use a back saver to create the channel that you can slide the sensor with the monitoring or the handling pipe into the ground. You before you put the pipe in the ground, you create a slurry with the soil from the sample that you've taken to create that channel, and mix it up, pour it down in there, and then slide the sensor down into the depth that you want. Usually they're put in to depths of 1 foot, 2 foot, and 3 foot. What's neat about having a system like this or a station like that in the field is that as your crop is growing and using the water, you can see the moisture content at the different levels drying out. And you can measure that and see that with your sensor. Before you put your sensor in the ground, you should check to make sure that it's functioning well. When you soak them, the reading that when you hook up your meter to the sensor, it should say 0 to up to 10 is probably okay. If it's perfectly and totally dry, the sensor should read around 199. And so most typical readings of a watermark sensor are in the neighborhood of, let's say, 80 or 60 to 80 when you're getting to that irrigation application time. So this is a chart that helps you to interpret your measurements. As you can see, the measurement means different things for different textures, and so for 50% depletion, you can see that for a loam soil, the meter will read somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90 on the meter, and that's the one difficulty about the watermark sensor, is that the interpretation varies depending on what the soil texture is. So that's basically all I have to say about tensiometers and watermark sensors. Any questions?
For those watermark ones, is there a special meter to test them, or?
Yes. The meter is on the left-hand side there. It's a cables that you hook up to the leads on the sensor, and it tells you, it gives an indication of what the moisture content of the soil at that point is. But then, as I said, it varies with the texture. So the measurement, the number, let's say it's 50. The interpretation of that moisture status varies with the texture of the soil. For some soils, that's dry, whereas others, there's still lots of room before you have to irrigate.
Sorry, is that a sensor that you take to the field, or is that lab?
It's a field installed sensor.
Right. So how many of those? Just one? Like, cause your texture can vary.
I would say that for a given field,
Yeah.
It's nice to have at least 2 different depths. In like the guide that I used to prepare this suggested 3,
Right.
but I would say 2 is a good idea. One that's down about 2.5, 3 feet, and then another one that's shallower, like say about 1 foot.
Okay. And then cost
The cost of them,
and purchase.
I would say they're less than $100. I'm not sure what they are. I think they're around $50 or so. What are they?
Did you break it through for that?
infield, or if it's better off to go with something that you can just take them to a field and grow.
It's nice to have them. They're especially useful, as I said, when you can see, you have 2 or 3 different depths, and then you can see your field drying down. The top one is dry, whereas the lower ones still have moisture. The roots haven't gotten there yet.
Sorry, with the watermarks, you would leave the actual green sensor in the field, because it takes a while for it to equilibrate with the surrounding soil, and then you just take that meter from, I mean, that meter's, like, it'll just read in PPA. I'm sure you could probably ring up some kind of, just an electrical meter. You just need that conversion between the resistance and the suction. But that meter that we provide you does all that inside the meter.
And there's newer systems than I have that do that remotely, so you can have it set up so that the signal or the reading is, you can read it on your cell phone. There's apps that allow you to have that, if a signal is sent to your cell phone, you can read what the moisture is without being there. And that's kind of important too, or good, because then you're not traipsing through the field and damaging the crop while you're walking through it.
What would be the proximity in relations to how close they are together? Do you have them side by side, just 1 foot, 1 foot, if you run 3 of them?
I would suggest that you have a station in the field that's representative of the field, and then you have the different depths in the same location, rather than moving it. And you wanna have it kind of in a location that's, like representative of the field, not a low spot, not a high spot, kind of a medium location.
Have you done much work with capacitance probes, or?
No, I haven't. I don't have experience with them. I've only used actually the Watermark sensors. Anyone else? Well, I'll pass the baton on to Joel.